Alright, so next up on the list, we have a game that, I've been trying to play, a little bit more often these days, but really doesn't happen very well because our only OP events are like an hour and a half away from me, which makes me very sad. But that is D&D Attack Wing.
The new kid on the block.
Look at these Dungeons and Dragons things. So yeah, I mean, once again, we talked about, I do a lot of these. We do a lot of the Star Trek stuff, every other week at this time on this channel. But D&D is another game that we have that, it hasn't actually. I feel like it hasn't actually gotten that much, attention from podcasting, YouTube, and all that kind of stuff. So I haven't seen too many, battle reports and things like that. But D&D Attack Wing, just to start from the beginning, is another miniatures game. You have a certain number of legion. Is this what it is now? Legion points to spend, and you spend them on whatever kind of creatures you want. So your red dragon takes up like 60 of your legion points, and then you have like 40 legion points to field like a troop of 4 or 5 elves or something like that. And then you go at it and see which one, which fantasy army survives longer. It's like I just talked about a game that runs on similar mechanics that, creatures take up a certain amount of leadership points, and then you try to kill the other guy.
Same basic premise.
But yeah, as far as miniatures games, though, the things that this has the same kind of benefits that I liked about Star Trek Attack Wing and X-Wing. Maybe not so much X-Wing Armada because that's like super expensive. But this is actually this is a miniature game that's not too expensive to really get into. The base set is like $50, $40 to $50, and the expansions can range from $10 to $20. And you can actually play and have a reasonably good time with the base set and maybe even just a couple expansions. Plus, it's cooler looking, like way cooler than Star Trek. Don't make me kick you out of this chat room, Omani. I will do it. I know where you live.
The models are certainly a cut above Star Trek. I think they're better than even X-Wing.
Oh yeah, I like them. I like them a lot. I think they can still use a little work, but I mean, look at the face on that red dragon. It's got all the teeth, giant wings. Actually, I feel like this is painted a little better than the one that came in my starter set. Maybe I'm wrong.
When I got my starter, the first thing I did with the red dragon was pour hot water on his wings to fold them down, so it looks like he's...
Oh yeah, so then it's got the whole coming up and down, yeah. I did that, and then I found that the problem was that he always bumped into other dragons on the battlefield.
Oh yeah, he's a menace, but man, he looks cool.
But he looks darn cool. But besides that, we have all sorts of different troops. Like you can see, I've got here is like you got your troop of elves that are like on small bases. You got your big old dragons that are on these larger size bases. You even got there's an angel in this one. That's cool. Giants with their clubs trying to throw rocks to bring down those other dragons. One of the things I'm not so sure about in this game, they have a number of premium figures. And now the premium figures in X-Wing and Star Trek, you have your small base and then you have your big bases. The premium figures in D&D Attack Wing have ginormous bases. Like they're 2 large bases by 2 large bases squared. They're 6 inches by 6 inches. So these are your dragon gods. See, Bomber Bay knows where it's at. Dragons rule with 5 heads. If you've ever played D&D, we also have your dragon goddess of evil dragons, Tiamat, with her 5 multicolored heads. We've got your platinum dragon god Bahamut, who is facing the wrong way in this picture. He's a little shy. But these guys are gigantic, comparatively speaking. And it's kind of fun seeing them on the table. The thing I don't like about it, really, is that some of them cost upwards of like $60 even on sale. Tiamat's like $60. That's a little more than I want to spend for a single figure. Bahamut's like 50. I actually went and checked though. It looks like some of the newer big gigantic dragons are only going to be down to like 30 or 35, which isn't too bad, but they're still gigantic and they're still a little bit more expensive. I will say, however, this is a better price point probably than Armada is getting right now.
Yes, Armada is more expensive.
Armada is like $100 for the base set and like $25 no matter what expansion you want.
25 plus, I think.
Especially for like the bigger ones.
Yeah.
But
But would you say, I mean, in Star Trek Attack Wing, you can play Deep Space Nine or the Borg Cube, but you never would because they're not good. Are these premium figures good? I mean, I think one did pretty well, right, at Worlds?
mm-hmm. They do all right. I mean, it's not the game. If you're looking for the differences between this and some of the other miniatures games, especially like X-Wing that run the flight path system like X-Wing and Star Trek, is that there aren't a lot of too ridiculous combos in the game right now. So like in Star Trek, we have things that if you are giant and have 0 agility, you can still stop 1 or 2 attacks per turn if you really wanted to throw your points into it. D&D, we're into wave 8 or 9 now, and we don't have that yet, and I'm pretty sure we're not going to. Like it was a kind of like a swing in the opposite direction from the reactions to things that were going on in like Star Trek and stuff. Because Andrew did originally come from Star Trek before he started working on this one, but they can be all right. Maybe even a little weak at points, but I don't know. I haven't actually, since I don't actually own one, I haven't had too much say in how to fight with them or against them, but generally I feel like their survivability is not quite as good as it could be for some of these, but they do have some ridiculous upgrade cards every once in a while that you really want. Bahamut's Disintegration Breath, for one.
Sounds good.
It just sounds cool. Even like you already know that compared to Fire Breath, Acid Breath, Disintegration Breath. It's like you already know that that's going to be a step above the other ones.
I'll say
that seems like one of those that you really want if you're going for that kind of thing. Crush is always fun. They just get free attacks to just like fly over somebody and stomp down on top of them because they're bigger. But yeah, they are pretty expensive considering. Not too bad,
that's
though,
pricey. But like you said, not necessary for having fun.
Oh, definitely not. And there's a lot of things like there is definitely a little bit of power curve in this game. Like there are certain mostly like the same thing as in a lot of the other kinds of flight path games. High attack values and low defense values are still working out all right. Probably a little bit better than most other things. Defense, generally not quite as good. This game is I wasn't sure about it at first, but after playing quite a bit of it, this game is a little bit more dicey than Star Trek, but I would say less dicey than X-Wing. The diciness apart comes into some of the way the mechanics work. So looking at just like a basic card that we've got, you've got an attack value. That's how much potential damage you can deal to a creature. Either in normal hits or critical hits. Agility, which is the green number, which is how many of those hits they can just dodge out of the way of. You got like a 33% chance for each point you have of dodging one of those. Health, when you take that much damage, you die. And armor is actually one of the new innovations in this game. So armor counts as straight up damage canceling for 1 dice. So 1 armor will cancel 1 hit off of every attack. Which is neat because, a lot of the ways that agility versus armor kind of worked in like, regular RPGs is, if you have high agility and low armor, you can take, single big attacks, you just avoid it altogether. However, if you have low agility and high armor, like lots of little attacks are something that you're going to be able to ignore because even though they all hit you, they're all not doing a whole lot and things like that. So, I mean, you've already got like a nice little dynamic that doesn't exist in the other games.
That's
In
right.
that defense
Armor would
layout, yeah.
be in place of shields, and really changes the way the game works from my experience anyway.
Mm-hmm. And where the diciness comes in is the dice have attack dice, as you know, like 8-sided. They have 3 hits and 1 critical. Critical hits, no matter what they're coming from, go through. They penetrate your armor. You know, every time you take a crit, you're definitely taking the effect, which I like because you know that's one of those things that I didn't like in Star Trek, where it's like if you take a hit in the show, they're like, oh my gosh. We're shaking, and then all of a sudden the deflector grid's down. Get that repaired, or shields and engines are damaged, and things like that. You know, even with their full shields up, they're still taking these things. And that's just a way that I feel like critical should work. Is like they go through and they deal you that kind of penalty that you have to deal with. However, there isn't too many ways to change the dice into criticals for the most part. There's definitely a few, but if ever you just kind of randomly roll like 3 criticals in an attack, you might have just probably won the game right there. And that's something that like really shouldn't happen that often. But when it does, like there's not it often tends to be there's nothing you can do against it. Have you ever had that happen to you?
Yeah, certainly it can be. It can, yeah, it can be game deciding,
Mm-hmm.
and because you have to use your evades to cancel hits first, right? Before
Yep.
you can say same as any of the other ones. Yeah, so I mean, boy, that can be trouble. So I've played a game with friends where it took 3 or 4 rounds of combat before an enemy died, and then we started again with the same figures and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and it died on the first attack.
Mm-hmm. Like the
So
different kinds of defense are nice, but when you look at it, the attack damage to number of hits you can take ratio is a lot lower than it is in Star Trek, and even lower than it is in X-wing. Like
yes, because armor in a way it takes away hits, but it doesn't add to hit points, and there are a lot of attacks that penetrate armor too.
mm-hmm.
So
So
what would be the highest? What would be the highest value? It's not hull. It's
the highest health. Technically, the highest health is 10, but that is Dragon God Bahamut. He costs
right.
like 84 out of your 100 points that you get.
Right.
So,
and 5 and below is pretty common, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. 5 or 6 is like your biggest normal creature for the most part, and a lot of times, sometimes, a lot of them are even just like 4, because yeah, that's just how they are. But I think it's actually mostly 4 and 5. I'm not even thinking of too many 6s right now. But when you consider that a lot of the heaviest hitters in the game start with like 4 or 5 attack dice normally, you can see that it can add up pretty quickly to like a dead creature in a very freakishly terrible streak of luck. Like,
yeah, and like you said, the Bahamut's 84 points. The unit, it's 120 points typically, same as Attack Wing, but it's normally less creatures because you're spending more than 50 points normally to field a unit.
Oh yeah, like on this battlefield, we have like 3 dragons and a troop of elves versus a giant, a dragon, an angel, and a troop of goblins. Like this was a 200-point game, so this is over the limit that is usually played at.
Right.
Also, it's got a cool little. Oh, it's got a ballista in the back too. I didn't. Ballistas are crazy.
And a 200-point game is probably a 2-hour game.
Hour
and a half.
I guess so. I'd probably say an hour and a half, or if you're going by like a kind of tournament mindset, an hour and a half should be where you're aiming for. Because there's a lot of games at 100 points or lower, that uh, an hour it should be enough to tell you who's won, and if it hasn't done it by then it should just be you should probably just cut off there because there are points like even in like Star Trek and X-wing, there are points when you're like one ship versus one ship, and it doesn't become it's a different game. It's like
Right.
chasing it down, shooting ineffectively, things like that. And it's like the game was pretty much decided like 5 turns ago. Like this is just delaying the inevitable and things like that. So an hour is about the point value I put, or an hour and a half is about what I would put on a point value of this scale. And that's the baseline for like a game of Armada, which is another reason why I still like this one. You hear me comparing this to Armada a lot because Armada is like the more expensive big brother of X-wing. This is kind of like the big brother of Star Trek.
Right. And more similar mechanically to Star Trek, because Armada is fairly different in
Oh
its
yeah, Armada
mechanics.
went and changed up a bunch of rules as for what they were doing, and that was cool. But their like standard size in like coming up in like the next month or two is supposed to be like 360 points and 3 hour long games, and that's a little bit more
Right.
than my attention span wants for a 2 player game.
Yeah. And one of the things I like about Dungeons and Dragons over Star Wars and even Star Trek is, I mean, I love Star Trek. Dungeons and Dragons is interesting to me. I'm talking flavor wise, but Star Trek I love. But you know, after you get a couple iconic ships in Star Trek, they're not. You start to get to some uninteresting ships, and I think that's even quicker in X-wing and Armada. Dungeons and Dragons has cool stuff that they could bring out in figurines for the rest of our lives.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that. Like even all of the dragons, even though they're kind of mechanically similar, they all look different enough and fun enough. Um,
Yeah, and when you're playing in that fun way, you want the dragon you find the coolest, and your buddy wants his dragon, right?
I mean, I'm a big fan of the Draco Lich because you've got the red dragon with the flesh flowing off of him and the bone wings and the great big giant teeth that are elongated because he doesn't have any mouth to hold them in.
That it's a really nice model. Evil though, Will, evil.
I don't. Did I mention that I am a heavy evil player around here?
I see. Not me. Silver and gold, man. Those are
Oh,
my. Well, though, I guess I'm a lying liar because I bought an Illithid model for the game last night because they're so cool.
I like him too. Yes, he is one of those that is pretty fun and awesome to play with because you can always use a brain sucking squid man.
Exactly. They're the most terrifying thing in that game to me. If I this
And you
is
said
true.
and you said it yourself. You just bought him because he was cool, not because he even went with what you got. Like there's dwarves, there's
Yeah,
your complimentary dark elf, uh, tortured hero because well that's how he is in the books and everyone already knows who he is.
and that he didn't ruin the game. When they said that Drist was coming out in the game, I was like, oh well, that's the game. That's your board ship right there. Are you kidding me? That guy can do anything in those books, but
Can't.
he's good, but he doesn't wreck anything.
Oh yeah, and even with that, like you still got tons of stuff that you can keep getting out of these guys. Your half orcs, your half elves, more dwarf units, more elf units, wizards and rogues and high armored paladins and warriors and guys riding horses or griffins or
That's right. Yeah, and
manticore. I picked up was one of the prizes for this one. It was pretty fun.
what? Sorry, what was the prize?
The manticore, the goat-headed, lion-headed, dragon-headed thing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Also evil, I believe. Will
Shh. Evil
there's
gets all
trou-
the cool
there's
stuff in this game.
there's a troubling pattern emerging here.
hey, no, I'm a big fan of my druids. I wish they would release more of them because I want to fight in bear form.
They
Because
have
who
nothing
can...
but hearts of neutrality. What makes a druid turn neutral? Lust for gold. Um,
Darn it,
one
Captain.
what was oh sorry. One of my friends plays just traditional Dungeons and Dragons a lot, and
Mhm.
he buys the figures to use there, which they're perfect for. So
Oh yeah,
it has
these
that
are
side
literally
benefit
the
too.
D&D line, just with the ability to stick on a different kind of base.
What's that? Sorry.
These are literally the same sculpts from the actual D&D miniatures line, just with a
Right.
different base to be put on for this game, and cards of course, but
Yes.
same sculpt, same coloring. Like if you look on the bottom of some of your like ground units and stuff, it'll actually say like number 22 elf, as if you had pulled it out of one of those like blind boxes, and it has like an elf and a
Right.
dwarf
Right.
and all things like that.
Hmm.
But yeah, classic fantasy miniatures, which is cool. Um, costs the cost to field a viable army for most things is under $200, which is not the same thing I could say of Warhammer, which is like the other most popular miniature game ever.
And I think that would be a viable army to compete in organized play, just with your friends. I mean, if you guys split a starter, an investment of $50 or $60 more after that is going to give you a lot of options.
Oh yeah, lots of fun
Um,
things, and there's cool stuff in the starter. Like there's reasons to get a second starter, but not really a reason to hold on to much of the stuff. So like what I like to do is like buy a starter, part out the three dragons as three kinds of prizes, and then have like a beginners demo kind of tournament. So each one picks one of the dragons they like, and then whoever wins gets to take one of the dragons of their choice home.
oh, that's cool.
And like the winner would get like the damage deck and the templates. Second place gets a dragon, but he still have to buy his own starter set to complement that. And I think that's like a good way to try to get more people into the game.
That's how
Uh,
you give them a taste. That's how
at,
you give them a
at least
taste.
it was until we only had like one demo night and we could never get the tournaments going.
Yeah,
Very sad.
yeah. We just had one or two around here, and then that was it. And And then it's funny because I have 4 or 5 friends that I play Star Trek Attack Wing with, and I forced them to play this a couple times, and then we're not those kind of nerds. They said,
Aw. And it's really
I,
cool too because like they added a new things. They added the armor. They added altitude. You can the difference between flying and walking on the ground. Elemental attacks. Fire breath actually has some mechanical differences from ice breath and things like that.
and Lightning Breath for sure. They're very different.
Right. Lightning breath. Paralyze your opponent. They can't take actions. Fire breath. Light them on fire. They can take extra damage. Cold breath. They cannot move. They can only do like really slow movements on their movement dial. If you take that particular upgrade.
Yeah, and even the base attacks are different shapes
Oh yeah,
to
oh yeah.
for those breath weapons. Fire Breath is a cone. Lightning Breath is a line that can
Mm.
so it's
And that's from the original like D&D lore and stuff. So that's always cool.
yeah.
I keep forgetting to get back to this. Bomber Bay. Can't wait to see if they're going to bring out wagons and castles. One of the neat things is that they Star Wars didn't really do a lot with missions. Like the giant thing ships came with missions and stuff, but like every Star Trek ship came with a mission, and a lot of them came with bonus pieces and things to punch out and use in them. Uh, there are a good number of mission pieces that come with the different D&D figures. You can build if you get the elf wizard. She comes with the walls and parapets to actually make a castle that you can fight on. If you get the silver dragon, he comes with a giant anchor and chain that in story wide terms holds a floating island to the ground that you have to fight around. That is like it actually represents a giant chain going from the ground up above your head into the clouds, tethering this island. Uh, or even there
I'd
was.
destroy that chain.
You'd like to think so, but it's like 100 feet wide of every link.
Okay. Well, I have a silver dragon, right?
It's bigger than your silver dragon. But no, and there's also like a lot of the OP events come with things. So like the OP2, if you actually got to go for it, or if you can get it off eBay for like $2 to $5 or something, like there's wells and poison tokens that you can poison the well, or there's actually one that has walls and wagons, pushing wagon along this trail and trying to get away from a giant dragon chasing you, and things like that. There are actually a lot of neat little obstacle pieces that you can get in this game, and they come in almost everything. Not the same stuff, of course, but like different things. The harpy comes with a cage and 3 little prisoner tokens that you can free and have them join your army, because otherwise they were about to get eaten. You don't want to get eaten.
There is a lot of extra stuff that comes, definitely more than Star Trek.
And if you ever go find some place that does like Warhammer and stuff, you can always get there. There will be people that have lots of terrain pieces there that you can just kind of borrow, because it seems there's a lot more fantasy terrain floating around out there than space terrain.
Which I guess just makes sense in real terms.
Mm-hmm.
Not much out there.
What do you have? You've got planets, asteroids, dead ships. In the ground, you've got your trees, you've got your voids, you've got your giant rocks. Let's bless them all till we get kashnookered.
Walls, trenches, whatever you need.
That's all kinds of cool stuff. But yeah, definitely, from the gameplay perspective, I was definitely one of those that's like, I don't want to buy a lot into this game until I, have it's gone through enough ways that I can see if it's going to be broken or not. For the most part, I mean, it's definitely less. I don't know. Do I really want to use those kind of terms for it? But I will say it's less broken than Star Trek. But there are less nonsensical rulings. There's 1 or 2, but not too bad just as of yet. So it's fun. I enjoy it. I'm probably still on the fence. I'm still not yet gone like all out on this like I did on Star Trek back when it got released.
Much like you were talking about that first computer game being a sequel and sort of being polished mechanically, compared to the first one, I'd say that's kind of the relation this has to Star Trek.
Everything they didn't like that failed in Star Trek, they kind of redid a little bit here.
Well, there's no 360 arcs, really, are there?
Not really, not without, very specific upgrades.
Yeah.
And those upgrades that like magic missile can shoot in 360, but it only does 1 damage, and you have to re-enable it every other turn.
No 360 upgrades for free.
Yeah.
Or no 360 arcs for free, rather. Stuff like that. You're right, it does seem a little more dicey, but I don't think that's a balance issue. That's just a variance issue, if anything.
Mm-hmm. But,
yeah. And they all look so cool. That's the bottom line. They look so cool.
This is the more acceptable nerd culture. Apparently. Everyone loves fantasy nerds more than they like space nerds.
Yeah, what's the deal with that?
I know, right?
I walk down many paths. I can hang with both, but come on. Star Trek's the most important thing ever.
And it even gets its own, little YouTube shorts about which is nerdier, Star Trek or Star Wars.
Yeah, hilarious shorts.
But yes, so as far as D&D Attack Wing goes, for the rule, even just for the rule system and to try it out and see how they change things, I would definitely say this is a good one to try picking up. Especially if you're one of those skeptical people, still pick it up and pick up maybe just a few expansions. Do some research, figure out what the good ones are. I would say, just from here, the best ones to pick up are Ballista, Silver Dragon, and man, I just really like the Illithid Commander because he's cool.
Yeah.
But also, some of the singular heroes are actually getting a little bit better. I don't want to recommend Drizzt because I'm just morally opposed to him.
To me, that's the greatest sign of balance for the game, because the creator and book writers can't even balance that guy out, right? And this game did it.
But like the Dwarf Warrior and like the Air Cult and the Earth Cult guy, like the Earth and Air Cult Warriors, I mean, how much more generic of a name can you get than that? But they still came with interesting things that have really kind of stepped it up in the last, wave or two. So we're getting a few more strange and interesting things coming in the latest wave, especially with like the Illithid Warrior or a mount that can actually fly. So any ground hero troop can now fly, which is pretty cool.
There's another Illithid coming out?
Oh no, just the Illithid we just got.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay, that's good.
And who knows what's going to change when we get, the giant Solar Angel or we've got the giants. What was the other ones that were coming out? Like an Orc Warrior or another Ranger of some sort or something like that. Cool things. Yeah. Cool things on the horizons and all that jazz.
I bet there's got to be there's a Beholder coming, right? Wasn't there a picture of it?
Yes. Eye lasers. Oh, I want him. The only thing is that I'm still kind of skeptical about the premium figures, but since they seem to be coming down in price, maybe they won't be that bad.
True.
But not something I am going to throw all of the money into, unfortunately.
And not having them is definitely something you only have to worry about if you want to play the game in a competitive tournament kind of setting, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So,
but with all especially with all the missions, there are super fun ways of just playing it just normally, and I've actually managed to get quite a few games in and not get really bored with it yet, even though there's only like 2 other people I can play with, and we've already gone through all the scenarios we could.
Right.
Be like, let's go through another one. Oh look, the Pegasus came with a cool one, and it came with people that can ride it. What? That's crazy talk. That hadn't happened yet.
The Pegasus, that's one for the ladies. That'll get them into the game.
It's a cool one. But yeah. Let's see.
Horse. Well,
it is.
It's a horse. That's
of course.
All it is. Of course.
Unless it's Mr. Red. All right. It is 9:55. Do you want to go on to Chrono Trigger?
Well, we can, or we don't have to do it if you wanna end here. It's
let's go ahead.
You're the boss, man.
I want to hear what you have to say about it, because I have actually not played this game.